Hello again, friends and fellow truth seekers. Mike Nicholas here with another episode of the Soul Unleashed podcast, where it's my goal to help you with the questions you might have regarding the awakening of your soul, and particularly to help other left-brain types like I am to ask the right questions in our search for a deeper meaning to life. And ultimately, I want to help you unleash your soul from limiting beliefs and smothering paradigms. Let's get started with today's podcast. I want to talk about what happened this weekend with the Orbs up in New Jersey. Back in Virginia now, but up in New Jersey, I was at a place called the Flanders Hotel. It was built in 1923, and so one might argue there's a whole bunch of spirits flying around that place. But this has been the second time that I've actually taken one of the little Amazon Blink cameras with me to check and see if orbs were there with me. And I was a little bit unsure that might happen this time because I've had trouble seeing them in my home where I've seen them for the past couple of years. And I figured maybe I just simply moved on to another episode in life about the orbs. I want to just talk today about, yes, they're here, and also, why that even matters. What does it mean to you that I might be seeing orbs? And I think it's important, so that's why I want to share it. First of all, they do exist. I did see them. I had the camera set up in my room in the hotel. I wanted to do a little bit of a test, and so I went upstairs to a room where my family members were hanging out. And I asked my brother to look at my camera, look at my phone, which looked through the camera into the room. And there was nothing there, right? The camera was on, but you could just see the room was lit up just by the infrared light from the camera, and there was no activity. And asked him just to watch me go into the room and sit down for a few minutes and see if the orb showed up. So my brother did that. I went down to the room, and of course I didn't have the camera or the phone with me, so I couldn't see anything. I went into the room. It was dark. I went and sat on the couch. When you're sitting there by yourself, 30 seconds seems like an eternity. And so I think I sat there probably for 30 seconds. I simply invited the orbs to join me. And of course I didn't know if they did or not. And then I stood up and exited the room and went back upstairs. So when I got up there, my brother was, I asked him, did he see orbs when I was in the room? And he shook his head no. And I thought, oh, well, maybe they're not here. He said, but I did see them after you exited the room. So they showed up after I left, which means, to my way of thinking, that I invited them to join me, but I didn't hang out long enough for them to show up. And they did show up. And when I looked at the video, it took about maybe 10 seconds after I exited the room that they came into the room, and then they stopped because I wasn't there. So I thought I had kind of sold them short, and I decided later at that night when I was going to retire for the evening to do it the way I normally do it, which is to meditate a little bit, calm myself, center myself, breathe, and invite them to join me. And I had my phone with me. And sure enough, they showed up, like 10, 15, 20 of them, large ones, small ones, blinking, not blinking, moving, the way I'm used to seeing them. And I was pretty excited to see them. And believe me, I have no doubt that they are orbs. I've tested these, as I've mentioned in other podcasts. I've tried different phones, different cameras. In the hotel room, I turned off all the air, so the air blowing in the room was shut off, and because I didn't want to have any kind of air blowing that might be construed as dust, or there's no insects, it's winter. So I'm sure I was seeing orbs. And the cool thing about this is, why is this important? It's important to me, first of all, because I'm happy. There's something beyond what my five senses can sense. There's something beyond what our five senses can sense, and I'm convinced that you, as well as me, are able to see orbs if you look for them and if you actually believe you can see them. But I'm also kind of relieved that I'm not a nut job, well, in some sense, that these things really do exist, and reliably they show up when I ask them to join me. So I'm happy that they provided some also proof for me. Now, it's not like, handwriting on the wall or some type of lightning bolt, saying that this exists or we exist. But it certainly is unusual, and in my humble opinion, paranormal, that these things continue to show up when I invite them, and that they act a certain way. And those certain ways are they show up in rooms only when there's people there. So if I was to look at my camera, and I did this a couple times throughout the weekend, just left the camera on and looked through it when I wasn't in the room, there's nothing there, absolutely no movement, no orbs. They're only there when I'm there in the room, but I think it would be the same if anybody was in the room. They show up because of people or other souls, if you will. But they provide, for me, some sense of joy, happiness. I'm excited to see them, and I want to share this with other people because it provides me comfort. It provides me comfort that there's something beyond this life. Now, one might argue that you should have that already, right? If you're a person of faith or a man or woman of faith, that you believe in the Bible, and the Bible says that there's life after death or that there's heaven, and not necessarily Christian, but most religions teach that there's something beyond this life, and we're encouraged, of course, to accept that on faith, which is awesome, which is great, and I did that for most of my life. Now seeing this, what to my mind is proof that there's something going on that we just don't quite grasp or can see, is exciting to me, that there's something beyond this veil that we're currently in. And so it's exciting, and it provides me comfort, especially knowing that, our son who's passed and other loved ones have passed. I believe that this presence that I'm seeing in the orbs represents some form of consciousness. And I think it started when my son, when we were really grieving about our son, is when the orbs started. So I think he's involved with it somehow. It's also led me to accept more readily things that I thought were kooky, mediums and channeling and past life regression and some other things I'm starting to investigate, like controlled remote viewing or even astrology. I'm still working on those last two things, but I'm starting to accept that there are things that I don't understand that I thought were out there, and that they may have some basis. In fact, it also has opened me up to other messages that I've received about soul groups and reincarnation, the Akashic records, life between lives, and what happens. These are things, a lot of books that I've read and messages I've seen channeled about these things. Now, most of this, if not all of this, flies in the face of everything I learned and was taught growing up. Believe me, there's nothing in the Catholic Catechism, I don't think, about Akashic records or reincarnation. But I have come to accept that there is the possibility that this does exist, that it is true. And I'm no longer bound to, when I talk about in the intro about smothering paradigms, for me, that was a smothering paradigm, that we're here, we have one life, we live it, whether we live for a day or whether we live for an hour or whether we live for 90 years, that's all we get, and we're judged on our actions here on earth, good or bad, at the end of our lives, or at the end of time, depending upon what your specific faith is. So I don't accept or believe that anymore. I believe in these other possibilities, and that's why the orbs are important to me, and I think they're important to you if you're on this journey of self-awareness and self-discovery and spiritual awakening that you might be going through. And hopefully that's why you're listening to this podcast in the first place, is I want to provide a roadmap for other left-brainers like myself that would not have looked at any of this. I never would have considered this stuff as anything other than silliness. I was always kind of interested, and I always felt there was something more. But now that I've gotten into this, and especially that the orbs have forced me to do this, I'm really excited to continue to investigate it and also to share it as part of this podcast. So that's what I just wanted to share today. It's been a blast, actually, seeing the orbs, seeing them again, and just playing around with them. For some reason, when I put my hand up, they kind of either hit me in the palm or go through my hand, or they just become more active when I kind of react to them. And I'm watching myself through my own phone, so that's kind of cool. And like I said, I have some of those videos up at MikeNicholas.com, where you're welcome to go and view those. And also, if you want to contact me, you can contact me at mike@MikeNicholas.com, or just go to the website. There's a contact form there too. So thanks again for listening. Again, if you get the chance to leave a rating for the show or a review, I really appreciate it. Thanks again. That's all for now. Bye-bye.